Do we still believe that the balloon, the surveillance balloon over the continental United States was an intentional act? Or do you believe that part of it was an accident?
Well, Chuck, what I can tell you is this. What is clear is that once the balloon was over the United States and flying basically west to east, it attempted to surveil very sensitive military sites. In some cases, it loitered or returned to them as it progressed east. So there is no doubt in our minds at all that A, this was a surveillance balloon, and B, it was attempting to engage in active surveillance.
How is the New York Times reinforcing this anti-trans narrative? What are they doing wrong?
Yeah, I first want to say that this isn't new. And I think that's one of the important things that the contributor letter pointed out is that you can go back in history and see this over and over again. And particularly if you go back and look at early coverage of gay people, coverage of the AIDS epidemic, this is something that the Times has done by failing to have a self-reflective analysis of the biases they bring to the coverage of certain communities, and especially the trans community. And particularly in the context of the trans community, I've been pointing out since 2016 that this has been an ongoing problem in which we see coverage of trans people done in a way that looks like a press release from a far-right organization. Not unlike how we see press releases from police departments coming in and becoming news stories that look like press releases. And this is incredibly insidious in this moment because we're seeing an escalating set of attacks on the trans community with over 300 pieces of legislation introduced just this year. It is February. And not only have there been 300 pieces of legislation introduced, they are the #1 priority in states. In the midst of, the continued post-pandemic realities, current pandemic realities, so many things that people are grappling with, and yet we are seeing these bills push through in states across the country. And this is how the Times covers our lives, as if there's some sort of vast conspiracy in which there's too many of us.
I think typically people disconnect what's going on in state legislatures, what's going on with these anti-trans bills, and the way that media is misrepresenting this. Draw the line for us directly.
Yeah, I think the reality is that it's two parts of the same set of normative problems, which is that people have a reflexive discomfort and misunderstanding about trans people. That allows them to dehumanize us. That happens in the Capitol buildings, and that happens on the pages of the New York Times. Our bodies are talked about in sensational ways. Our healthcare is made to seem like it is part of some conspiracy in which children are being harmed. And the rhetoric of harmed children, the rhetoric of confusion about trans lives, then propagates these narratives that are lifted up in state houses and then also continue to be reinforced in the pages of publications that people get their information from. And so we create a culture in which people don't understand what it means to be trans. And this isn't just about healthcare. I think Jonathan Chait had this piece that was like, oh, well, this is about real harms, not like the bathroom context, which that's just wrong. States are passing bathroom bills now. States are criminalizing trans adults going to the bathroom. None of those things have stopped. And all of them have been fueled by the way in which misinformation about trans people has been held up in a lot of publications that we would consider to be center-left publications.
Good morning, Ali. The former president is here at his home just a short distance from where we are. And as you mentioned, he is receiving that hospice care. And of course, the family said that this is a decision that the former president made after a series of short stays in the hospital. They didn't go into detail about why he had been hospitalized during those times, but they shared that he decided he wanted to be home with his family during these remaining days. And we also heard from the grandson of former President Carter, who shared that he had just visited with his grandfather a few days ago. And he said that the Carters are, quote, at peace. And as always, their home is full of love. And we know that the current president, President Biden, has also been in touch with the family here. And we also saw the Secret Service tweeting about this, saying, quote, we will forever be by your side. And so we're seeing those tributes already. We've spoken to some people here in this community who have likened this to the experience that you have with a grandfather, where at 98 years old, they knew that this time was coming. And so there is a sense of peace about this. And that is something that the former president himself shared. As we know, in his 80s, he was diagnosed with melanoma in his liver, and it spread to his brain. And he miraculously was able to defy the odds through treatment. But he spoke about what that somewhat near-death experience was like. And I want to play some of what he shared about that. Take a listen.
I just thought I had a few weeks left. But I was surprisingly at ease. You know, I've had a wonderful life. I've had thousands of friends, and I've had an exciting and adventurous and gratifying existence.
And of course, he did do so much in his lifetime. He served just one term as president, but he worked around the world on issues of peace and human rights. He also made time to volunteer here once a year with Habitat for Humanity. And he returned to Plains, Georgia after he left the White House, and he would teach Sunday school at his church here. And so really has had so much of an impact on this community, and certainly people thinking of him and praying for him today with this news that he is now under hospice care. Allie?
Alttan. Bükelim şuraya da aşıdan. Altını şey yapalım. Hadi. Dur abi şurada bak. Şu oraya basma. Orada çekil. Orada çekil abi. Sana çekil şunu. Şuraya da. Şurasını da abi. Bak şuradan aşağıya gel. Şuraya.
I'm going to start with you. What do these new revelations tell you about Dominion's case against Fox News?
They're pretty toxic, Paula. They are really the kinds of things you rarely see in these big lawsuits, because typically in a defamation lawsuit you have an errant or maybe a hot dog reporter and a failure of a fact-checking system. These, what we've seen, demonstrate a corporate-wide defamation, because the critical constitutional standard is, did they know it was false? And from the hosts to the producers up to Rupert Murdoch, there's really vivid evidence that says exactly that. So they're looking at a very serious prospect of a big verdict and a reputational hit.
And Congressman Curbelo, I'm sure you read, all the pretty shocking quotes from so many of the Fox News hosts and producers. But what does all of that tell you about the way that they viewed their own audience? No, like what do they think of their own audience?
Paula, it's a great lack of respect, because obviously this is something that isn't news, even though it is, right? Kind of everyone knew that this was a big lie, that there was no evidence to back it up. That was proven in court numerous times. And yet these people, many of them, went along with it. To be fair, some didn't. Some people left the organization after the election, but many did. And I think this is disrespectful to the viewership and damaging to the country.
Tia, I want to take us back to Fulton County, because that's equally important. Obviously, the DA has said that, decisions may be coming soon. It's imminent. What are you watching for next?
Well, we'll be watching for, number one, what does Fani Willis decide to do as far as who she charges and what she charges them with. She says imminent, but we're thinking it might take a few weeks or so for us to hear more from her on that. And of course, there is the perjury that the grand jury says they believe one or more individuals should be charged with. But of course, we have the other charges related to interfering with the outcome of an election or those conspiracy charges. So we're just kind of waiting to see where the district attorney decides to go.